Moving on. Now let's see what Coleridge has to say on secondary imagination. In the previous video, we saw how Coleridge draws similarities between the primary and the secondary imagination. He says they are the same in kind, but they vary in degree and intensity. So he is of the opinion that while primary imagination is a universal phenomenon or it's a universal ability, secondary imagination is peculiar and distinctive, and it is specific only to the artist. So it because it enables artistic creation. It is that faculty or it is that ability which allows the artist to uh, to kind of creatively express themselves and uh, create a literary work or create a painting or create music. So, in other words, secondary imagination is more active and it is more conscious because it requires an effort of the will and the intellect. So, we saw how primary imagination is involuntary. We are not even aware that we are using our primary imagination or these faculties to absorb the external world. But when it comes to the secondary imagination, it is a very conscious, deliberate, studied, and orchestrated effort on the artist's part to use this ability to come up with something creative. So, what does secondary imagination exactly do? It selects and orders the raw material. Raw material is whatever is around us. So it's and the impressions that we have of the external reality. So that is selected and ordered and then reshaped and remodeled to to transform it into an object of beauty. So so transforming something uh, into an aesthetic creation involves secondary imagination. And Coleridge describes the quality of secondary imagination as esemplastic, that which has the power and the ability to shape and modify. He calls the secondary imagination an active agent that dissolves, diffuses, dissipates in order to create. So in other words, it is something magical, and he also refers to it as a synthetic power. And he attributes all poetic activity to secondary imagination. And he believes that it is secondary imagination which is a higher, more evolved, more sophisticated, and less common kind of imagination which synthesizes or fuses the various faculties, perception, emotion, will, intellect, and it brings these together to create something beautiful. And it is this unifying power of the imagination which is best seen in the fact when it synthesizes or fuses the various faculties of the soul. So, in other words, when it fuses the emotional with the material, the external with the internal, the objective with the subjective, and the physical with the intellectual.